is always that option to fix a problem yourself, but at the end of the day it is also your neighbour's problem. It is shared responsibility, and one question that you may want to ask yourself is, if I do fix it myself, will my neighbour be happy with that, or will it create more problems? And you know, it is always best to keep that communication open with your neighbour.
If you're wanting to get your fence fixed or replaced, it is going to be important to talk to your neighbour, because it is a shared fence and it will impact on their space and you know, their sense of their property. So it is important to go and talk to them before you proceed with anything.
If you've got a fence that needs replacing, you should talk to your neighbour, because your fence isn't specifically owned by you or your neighbour, it's actually shared. It's generally seen as 50-50. And if you, for example, were to start either repairing it or replacing it without the other party knowing it, that might cause some conflict. And largely what you want to be trying to do is making it as harmonious as possible and make sure that you've developed a rapport between the neighbour. So if, for example, you are repairing it at this stage and that later needs replacing, then you already have that avenue available to you.
You can obviously take matters into your own hands, but that actually, you run the risk of actually aggravating a problem. So if it's as simple as poking your head over the fence and telling your neighbour, hey, this is a problem, I was thinking of doing this, they could say fine and let you handle it completely by yourself. So you've actually avoided an argument, and you've avoided a lot of heartache.
Well, if you've got a fence that needs replacing, it would be best to go and have a talk to your neighbour. I mean, ultimately you own the thing together, so anything the two of you do should be done in consultation with the other person who owns it with you.
An option available to you is to in fact pay for the repair of the fence purely out of your own pocket. But that might be a problem, given that you are neighbours with this person and your relationship with them will be seen to go on for some period of time. And if you go ahead and act without their consent, specifically in regards to a fence, which is in fact shared property, it might cause some animosity between the parties, and you really don't want to be doing that.
If you want to fix it yourself, that's great. You know, you're trying to be proactive. But if we're talking about a fence, or if we're talking about a tree, particularly if the tree is on your neighbour's side and it's really owned by your neighbour, the best thing would be to actually talk to your neighbour. Let them know that you'd like to cut it back, or that you'd like to repair the fence yourself. But I wouldn't think it would be a good idea to actually go ahead and just start hacking into your neighbour's tree. You could destabilise it, you could cause problems with the relationship with your neighbour. So I think having a chat to your neighbour, letting them know what you're thinking of doing, and maybe even asking them if they want to get involved. If your neighbour doesn't and is happy for you to cut back the tree and put the branches back on their side of the property, or even leave them on the nature strip, then great. But talking to them first, rather than hacking into their tree or pulling down the fence, probably is a better way to go to try and keep a positive relationship.